of our member and series that we start, that we do with members as well as project leads. So we're very excited about it. A couple of housekeeping rules just to keep in mind. Please make sure that you follow the antitrust policy. All our Linux Foundation meetings, webinars, etc. Follow our antitrust policy. Please take a look at it. If you have any questions during the session, please raise your hand and I'll be able to address them. Please note that this session is being recorded. It's also being live streamed. Igor, if you can put into the chat the live stream URL when you can, feel free to share it with others who might not have registered to watch the live stream. Last but not least, after the session, the video will be available for viewing. It will also be uploaded into the Hyperledger webinar library, as well as YouTube, and will provide the slides that Daniel and myself will share. A couple of things to make this session the most productive and the most valuable for both the speaker and the attendees is get the most out of it. You know, raise your hand if you've been on Zoom before, and I would gather that a lot of you have. Use the raise hand feature if you want to be unmuted and speak up. We'll go ahead and open your voice line and you can ask a question, engage in a conversation, etc. If you prefer to just ask questions using the Q&A area of the Zoom, go ahead and click on that, ask your questions, and Daniel and I will be taking a look at it and going through those questions. And last but not least, we're a community. We are here to, just like if we were in person at an event, to hear the speaker, to meet one another. Please feel free to add comments and talks, but please do be respectful and follow our guidelines to make sure that we are nice and fair to everybody here. So once again, just a reminder for those who are joining us who are not familiar very much with the Hyperledger community. We are a collaborative open source software community that has been for the last 6 years focused on enterprise blockchain projects. We are hosted by the Linux Foundation, and we welcome all developers, business, technical leads from various countries. We have regional chapters which you can participate in, a meetup community that's very active, and obviously many of the developers and the companies that are building using Hyperledger technology. We currently have 17 different projects within Hyperledger, and you can see here there's a lot of project names and a lot of distributed ledgers, libraries, tools, and domain specific, and we just added another one that got approved by our technical steering committee called Firefly. So I encourage you to take a look at our website and see some of the other projects, but today our discussion is going to be focused on Hyperledger Besu, which is a Java-based Ethereum client, and primarily with Daniel talking about Palm NFT, which is a very exciting project in the NFT space that I'm sure you've heard about. Just a quick history of Ethereum and Hyperledger. You know, sometimes I joke about Ethereum and Hyperledger kind of being like, who put the peanut butter in my jelly kind of story, because a lot of people don't know that the Ethereum community and the Hyperledger community have been very collaborative since very early on. And even, you know, from an Ethereum perspective, you know, ConsenSys was one of the original Hyperledger founders in 2016. After 2016, we had some projects, for example, Burrow, that was admitted that had an Ethereum virtual machine, and that EVM was actually adopted across some of the other projects, including Fabric and Sawtooth. In early 2018, we decided to partner with the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and this was a joint collaboration where we were able to participate in EEA activities, and the EEA was able to participate in Hyperledger activities as well. And that has continued going on forward that as we work together in the ecosystem. In August of 2019, we had the honor of having Hyperledger Besu be accepted as a project, and maybe we'll get Daniel to talk a little bit about that process because he was one of the folks behind that. And since then, Besu continues to become a very active project within our community that we continue to provide a lot of resources and for. The Hyperledger and Enterprise Ethereum, you know, in 2021, the Forbes Blockchain 50 also had 21 of the companies using Ethereum and enterprise applications, as well as many of our other Hyperledger projects like Hyperledger Fabric. Hyperledger Besu, as a project, is one of the 4 mainnet compatible Ethereum clients supporting future hard forks. And the Besu community has done a lot of work. I encourage you to look at the developer chats and the lists and attend their calls if you want to hear more about that development process. There are many Hyperledger member companies that continue to come on board to support Besu, and that community, as I mentioned, continues to grow. So a couple of sample Hyperledger Besu use cases that you might be interested in looking at. Finality, which has the utility settlement coin. This is a CBDC wholesale payments project that includes 15 different institutions. And there are other CBDC projects like the Bank of Thailand and Reserve Bank of Australia that also have been using Hyperledger Besu. And Besu recently was also part of the submissions for the Monetary Authority CBDC challenge, in which a challenge finalist was ConsenSys and Visa. So very exciting work happening in the Besu space in the CBDC world. Another sampling is at LACchain. They've built a Latin America consortium on Besu for a variety of different use cases, including COVID-19 and a COVID vaccine tracker. And that should have said COVID-19, not David-19. And very exciting project, really building Latin American consortiums blockchain. Another use case, and you can see the full use case available on the Hyperledger case study. Just go to use and case studies, is Poste Italiane in Italy. And they let the customers, they built a loyalty program using Hyperledger Besu, which has become quite popular. So I encourage you to read that case study. But last, but certainly not least, and there's certainly more Besu use cases out there, is Palm NFT Studio. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Daniel Heyman. He is the co-founder and CEO of Palm NFT Studio. As I mentioned, Daniel has been in the Hyperledger community since 2018 and was part of the team that brought in what was called Pantheon and now has been called Hyperledger Besu. So Daniel, let me go ahead and just share your slides with you if I can do.
I overcame the video conferencing hurdles and I can share now if that's easy.
Great. Yeah, go ahead. I'll stop my share and you can go ahead.
Sweet. Right. Thank you for the introduction, Daniela. Yeah, it's been really rewarding to see how Hyperledger Besu has sort of taken on a life of its own within the Hyperledger community and projects around the world. So if any of you in the audience are considering contributing projects to the Hyperledger Foundation or interested in understanding what it's like to submit one and how the community can really bring the project forward, I'm always happy to chat about that. Big fan of the work that the Hyperledger Foundation is doing to bring these projects forward. And I am yet to hear of Firefly, so I'm excited to take a look at that as well. So, quick bit about me as to, why I'm talking and how I'm connected. Danielle covered some of this, but before co-founding Palm NFT Studio, I led the protocol engineering group at ConsenSys, and that's the group that built Pantheon, which we contributed to the Hyperledger Foundation and is now Hyperledger Besu. We also have an ETH2 implementation and sort of really focused on public blockchains, but also private blockchains and Enterprise Ethereum. So something like 30% of Enterprise blockchain use cases are built on ConsenSys Quorum, which ConsenSys and the protocol team there runs, and the core of that is Hyperledger Besu. So it's a great protocol, really versatile, and we built a large part of our business strategy around the Palm sidechain, which is running Hyperledger Besu as well. So before I get into the technology, I wanted to set the backdrop a little bit about NFTs, how we think about them, and why we think there's going to be an increase in NFT applications, engagement, use cases, and volume as we move forward. So when I joined the blockchain space, 5-6 years ago now, people were just sort of talking about non-fungible tokens and the things they could be used for, things like credentials, things like real estate, things like land deeds and all that. But what really happened on chain was crypto native art. So we all remember CryptoKitties, and CryptoPunks now are huge. Fast forward a couple of years, and we're in this real cultural moment where collectibles and crypto art are huge. We're seeing high value ticket sales. We're seeing lots of money made, probably a fair amount of money lost as well by some people. We're seeing huge brands enter the space, really keen to engage with the community and engage around this collectible ecosystem. But our view at Palm and Palm NFT Studio is that the collectibles use case, while important, is just scratching the surface of how NFTs will be used. We really think this is a fundamental reorientation of the relationship between creators and fans. And so, if you think about it, when I was growing up, some of you are probably too young for this in the audience. Some of you probably go all the way back to records. But when I was growing up, I would have my friends over to my bedroom and, to play after school or whatever. And when they were there, I'd show off my CD collection. And the artists that were in my CD collection were sort of an extension of my identity. My friends judged me or reflected on me based on the creators I cared about. And I was able to own a small piece of what they created and keep it in my room and show it off. And things I really cared about, I hung up as posters on my wall. Those were, I grew up in New York. I was a Yankees fan. So I was like Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams and Paul O'Neill. Those were the things I was really crazy about. And in the last 20 years, 30 years, we've moved away from that ownership relationship between fans and creators to the digitally native streaming relationship, where you don't own content, you rent it. And also the social relationship, where you don't have necessarily an ownership-based relationship, but you have an open relationship. And there's advantages to that, lots of advantages. A lot more people have access to content than they did 20 years ago. But there's a downside as well, and it's the weakening of the connection between, collectors or fans and their creators. And we've seen that in a number of different ways, and we've seen that in a number of different metrics. And my favorite way is like the resurgence of vinyl collecting. I think vinyl sales have increased every year on year for the last 20 years. And the reason is people want to own something. They want to be able to show something off, and they want to be able to have that direct relationship. And the key point behind all this is those items aren't expensive items. They're $10 items or $20 items or really small items, but they're items that I can show off and sort of have a piece. And so our view is that NFTs are going to go on this trajectory as well. The future of NFTs are not high value collectibles, but those will still play a meaningful role. The future is fan activation and fan engagement. And so lots of NFTs at either low price points or free price points distributed broadly to a community. And so when we were looking where to build this on, Hyperledger Besu came into our minds, because that future needs really scalable solutions and really reliable solutions for it to come to life. But with that backdrop, hopefully it makes sense, some of the choices we're making and the tech analysis we've done to move forward with Hyperledger Besu. So there we go. Great. All right. So what is Palm, the sidechain? It's an Ethereum sidechain. So for those of you that are familiar with Ethereum, it's sort of the most widely used public blockchain in the world. It's most of the NFTs that are happening in the world are happening on Ethereum today. It's where the crypto kitties happen, where crypto punks are, where most of the innovation is. It's really the hub of the NFT world, but it has a couple of challenges as well. And these are well-known challenges. So the first is there's really meaningful throughput limitations. Ethereum as a community is working towards Ethereum 2 with a sharded future that will solve some of these scalability needs. And at the current moment, there's sort of limits around 10 to 20 transactions per second, depending on configurations and times. The other part about Ethereum right now, as we all know, is it's fairly expensive because of gas fees. And so those range from like $20 all the way up to $1,000 in peak moments. So that's pretty eye-watering. And it makes sense, and it works for high-value NFTs. You'll spend $1,000 on transaction costs for a $69 million Beeple. You won't really care about the transaction fee. But if something's $1, or if it's free, or if it's $5, that becomes really meaningful. And then the other challenge with Ethereum is its energy in consumption. And so we built Palm to be really energy efficient. This is something that creators care about, that brands care about, that collectors care about, and is something that's really core to everything Palm sidechain and Palm NFT Studio does. And so because of Hyperledger Besu, we were able to configure a network that met all these and is compatible with Ethereum. And so it's a complement to the Ethereum ecosystem where people can come mint NFTs on Palm. They can buy, they can sell, they can collect, they can distribute. And then if they ever want to do something on mainnet Ethereum, they can move their NFT back across. So a little bit more detail on that. The entire Palm sidechain is built on Hyperledger Besu. And as you all may know, Hyperledger Besu has a few different consensus mechanisms you can choose from. You can choose to be compatible with Ethereum mainnet or sort of the same consensus mechanism and run your node there, running proof of work. One of the other consensus mechanisms that you can choose is called IBFT2. So that's a mouthful, but it comes with a bunch of really, really nice properties. So low gas fees and fairly predictable gas fees, which is really important in creating that cheap and smooth user experience we want. High throughputs, before we've optimized this, we're getting like 100 to 300 transactions per second. We know very easily how to get that to 600 to 700 transactions per second. And at ConsenSys, we've tested implementations around Hyperledger Besu that get us to 10,000 transactions per second. And then the other piece that's really nice is it's 100% EVM compatible. So it's the same virtual machine that runs on mainnet Ethereum, just with a different consensus mechanism. And the implications of that are that it's the same Solidity code, the same smart contracts, the same tooling, the same suite of APIs. Everything is super easy to redeploy on Palm as it is on Ethereum. So you can take advantage of the rich ecosystem that's already out there. And as I said, because it's so compatible, it works with all the tooling that's out there. And so Palm, the sidechain, is hosted by Infura. It integrates with some of the protocol labs, decentralized storage. MetaMask works smoothly on top of it, as do all the other wallets. Truffle's developer tools and sort of other developer tools like Remix and anything you might want, the Open Zeppelin, smart contracts, all that stuff works. And so you can take advantage of the 130 plus million users of Ethereum and all the developers who already know how to do and build on top of these solutions. So we designed the system not just to be easy to use, but for what we call DApp portability. So for us, it's really important that developers can build once and deploy across multiple systems. And because Hyperledger Besu is a fully mainnet Ethereum compatible client, we knew that that we can build a system around Hyperledger Besu that supports apps from mainnet Ethereum, or and just as easily, an app that's deployed originally on Palm could later move to mainnet Ethereum in addition if that's needed. And so there's a few different layers of the stack that you need to be compatible. So first, it's the API level, sort of this green one in the middle, Infura APIs. It's the same smart contract. It's the same external piece. And so if I'm a developer and I've already built my code and my app to run on Infura APIs, all you need to do is point towards the same endpoints on Infura, the ones that are related to Palm. And so that's great. And as I said earlier, it's the same Solidity smart contracts. You just need to redeploy the same Solidity smart contracts. And what's also really nice is the same assets that can come back and forth at the NFT layer. So if you have an NFT minted on Ethereum or an NFT minted on Palm, the sidechain, you can move them back and forth and they can interact with your dApps on both chains. So really designed for flexibility going both ways. That's super important because there's a lot of cool stuff already built on Ethereum that we want to take advantage of on Palm. And also we believe in open systems. We don't want vendor lock-in. We don't want people to be somehow boxed out of other solutions in the future if they choose to build on the Palm sidechain. And so that sort of flexibility is really resonating with some of our partners as well. So, since this is largely around Hyperledger Besu, I figure I'll just give some rundown of the tech specs. Again, it's an Ethereum sidechain, so that means it's compatible and sort of running off Ethereum. The assets go back and forth. It's the same Ethereum virtual machine. It's the same smart contracting language. It's the same developer tools. It's the same APIs. There's a bridge that goes back and forth, and this is up and running today. You can go to docs.palm.io to learn more. You can go to explorer.palm.io to see some of the sort of activity that's going on. And to make Daniela and the Hyperledger Foundation proud, the client that all the nodes are running is Hyperledger Besu, right out of the box. So that's Palm, the sidechain. And then I'm CEO of Palm NFT Studios, which is an NFT studio on top that builds exclusively in Palm, the sidechain. And so we partner with leading creators, IP owners, and folks wanting to play in the NFT space to help them develop their work. And so when I say help them develop their work, I mean both creatively and technically. We've invested very heavily in world-class and leading creative skills. We have world-class and leading technical members. We sort of have invested very heavily as well on building a community of collectors and working with the existing community and all those pieces. So if you're an IP owner interested in NFTs, we're here and keen to help. Here's a couple of projects that have been deployed on Palm, the sidechain already. So the first, probably the most well-known is the currency by Damien Hurst. So this was done in partnership with Heyman. For those who don't know Damien Hurst, he's arguably the most influential contemporary artist of the moment. I mean, he's sold works, I think he's done hundreds of millions of sales and works for high value and super, super famous stuff. He had 10,000 NFTs created to correspond with 10,000 physical unique pieces of art. And there's a cool little twist on this where NFT owners have the option to destroy their NFT and be sent the physical piece of art. And after 1 year, if they don't make that choice, we're going to burn the physical pieces of art and you'll be stuck with the NFT. So it's a bit of an experiment using this technology to understand what does it mean to own something? What is art? What do people care about in the 21st century? And I personally believe that more people are going to keep the digital than the physical. But when I talk about that or suggest that to my mother or my uncle or people who sort of don't live in the digitally native world, it's unimaginable for them. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see the share that gets burned. For some data, these were sold for $2,000 each. So $2,000 times 10,000, you can do the math. We originally valued the collection at 20 million. This slide is 2 weeks old now. So it was originally $40 million in secondary market sales. I think now we're over 60 or $70 million in secondary market sales. And so as we all know with NFTs, the artist can keep getting royalties for this. Damien obviously did fairly well off the primary sale, but he continues to make money on every secondary sale. And so these assets are sort of, it's really exciting the way they change hands. I think the other thing that's really interesting to me is the way people value things. So most of these 10,000, they sell at a sort of a similar price. They're fairly interchangeable, but there are a couple of different characteristics that people have identified to sort of buy and sell at a premium. And so the pieces that have one-word titles, they seem to sell at like a 20 to 50% premium. And same with the pieces that have curse words in their titles. They seem to sell like a 20 to 50% premium. Don't ask me why. I think it's kind of fascinating. When we were reviewing the project, we made predictions on which ones, if any, would be considered relatively unique. And at least for me, that never crossed my mind. But it's an example of how the market and sort of these open systems can shape projects in ways that we don't even understand or expect. So a completely different version of what we've done is we partnered with nifties.com and Warner Brothers to do a project around Space Jam. And Warner Brothers had this goal of using NFTs to promote their new movie release from the summer, which you might remember. We were able to distribute over 200,000 NFTs with over 130,000 accounts created, 150,000 social shares, and at a rate of sort of 5 transactions per second. So it got pretty active for the NFT space in the moment. And this is a different example. Most of these were for free. I think 12,000 were sold, but the rest were given away for free. The revenue was a nice win for everyone involved, but the real goal was to try to activate and engage a community of fans around the movie release. And this number of 146,000 social shares is sort of astronomical, right? The rate of people who got this thing and then decided to distribute it and share it out and amplify it speaks to what I was talking about at the top of this presentation around people really wanting to own a piece and make it part of their identity and then brag about it and share it and recommend it and talk about it. And these things aren't just one-off static items. Now they're doing additional releases and additional games around the original NFTs that were dropped. So if that's of interest, go to nifties.com and you can check out some of the ongoing Space Jam work as well. So yeah, just on time, sort of 30 minutes in. I would be yelled at by the rest of my team if I didn't say the necessary "we are hiring" spiel. We're hiring in all departments. We're really trying to grow the team in both creative, technical disciplines, product disciplines, solutions architects, technical writers, people operations, HR, recruiting. Like, we are hiring in all departments. So if that's of interest, careers@palm.io, or just feel free to reach out to me directly at dan@palm.io as well. And with that, I think we can pause for questions. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you, Dan. I have a few myself, as usual, but there's a couple already coming from the audience. So once again, just a reminder, everyone, if you have any questions, there's three options. One, raise your hand and I can call on you. And if you are interested in speaking, I'll open up your line and you can ask your voice question. You can also ask the question via the Q&A panel. Just go ahead and ask a question in there and we'll get to it, or just quickly just add it into the chat. I'll go with the Q&A question first, and then I'll open up to Krishna. Dan, there's a question from Crispin Courtney. Are multi-wallet royalties supported? Use case: Rock Band equals band members, manager, agents, etc.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think it's worth flagging that Palm NFT Studio, we're not a marketplace. We're not the venue where people buy and sell. It's through nifties.com or henny.com or Warner Brothers and through our partners. And so from a technical perspective, multi-wallet royalties are supported on Palm, the sidechain, on Ethereum. The question is enforcement by the marketplaces, the places where you buy and sell. And so I'm not sure about the specific marketplaces that exist on Palm network, which ones do support that and which ones don't. But I can double check and circle back.
Crispin, did that answer your question? If you have any other questions, I allowed you to talk as well.
Oh, hi. Yeah, so that tracks with everything else that I'm seeing for royalties. I do have a kind of a follow-on. Is it possible to mint, say, 10,000 NFTs on the side chain and then start bringing them over to mainnet?
Yep. Yeah, so of the 10,000 Damien Hurst, for example, I think about 1,500 have been brought back over to mainnet, something like that. Maybe the number's gone up a little bit now, but that's exactly right. And so it kind of makes sense for Damien Hurst, right? Those pieces started selling for $2,000 each. They went up to $60,000 sort of floor price at peak. I think they're probably around, I haven't checked in a little while. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but they're like $35,000 floor price last time I checked. For $35,000, you probably don't mind paying a couple $100 in transaction fees.
Exactly.
On mainnet. So we've seen a lot.
I have quite a few projects like that. They don't want to pay $2 million in minting fees, obviously, but they do want to mint it in one batch and then sell it on mainnet because that's where the party's at.
Yeah. So the other piece is, I'm happy to talk about this now or offline. Selling strategies, like where mainnet is much more effective right now than anywhere else, is for secondary markets. Mm-hmm. We're seeing pretty successful primary markets on different chains, and you can accept ETH in the same way you can accept fiat and then distribute on the actual asset on the side chain. So depending on your goals, there's a few different approaches to make it happen.
Would that be using a service like Circle?
Circle, Coin Payments, Coinbase Commerce, BitPay. There's like half a dozen out there that are effective.
Thank you.
Okay. Krishna, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak if you want to ask your question.
Thank you. Yeah. So I would like to know how do we get involved in this initiative? Do you have some experience to contribute towards the NFT space? If at all been interest, how do we get involved?
So, I mean, it depends entirely on what you want to do. I think the easiest is to join our Discord. You can find it, if you want to type out that convoluted link, I'll share it in chat at some point as well. And you can find it on our website, palm.io. And there's our community team there, always looking for engaged community members. If you're looking for something in terms of a job, our job openings are also if you go to the footer of palm.io all the way at the bottom, you can see our careers page and all the openings. And then if you have a project you want to bring to us, just reach out on Discord and we'd love to chat and get you set up.
I'm helping one of the artists. We're going to live next month, very soon. So would like to involve in this space. So yes, there are some artists, they're looking for a solution. Definitely, we would like to be part of your initiative so that we can contribute.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So yeah, if you join our Discord and hit us up there, we've got a bunch of our community team I know is listening to this call, so that they're going to hear me say this. They'll look out for your message and make sure you get routed the right way.
Is it through Discord I have to get connected?
It's not the only way. I mean, if you want to shoot me an email at dan@palm.io, I can connect you with other people that way. But Discord is the easiest.
Your first name dot last name?
Either Dan@palm.io or the full, you spell it out, Daniel.Heyman@palm.io.
Okay, yeah,
Both will reach me.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Dan, we have another question in the Q&A box. Welcome Fotzing from Cameroon. He's an entry-level developer, blockchain developer. Africa is a huge fountain for great and original arts. What are your thoughts about getting Palm to Africa? And Fotzing, I will open up your audio as well for follow-ups.
So it's a great question. Thank you for asking. So we hire globally. We're trying to keep things right now from California to Central Europe in terms of time zones. So if you fall within that, we're South America, Western Africa, we're keen to interview you and talk. So that's from an employment perspective. From a distribution perspective, all our projects are on the blockchain, so they're naturally global. For the projects that were, for Space Jam, which I just spoke about, where it was distributed for free, we did see an incredible amount of activity in across regions and countries. And so we are starting to see people in most geographies engage with the project, which is pretty exciting.
Great. Do you have a follow-up question, Fotzing? Or is that all right? I know we have a question from somebody who's here on the line. Igor, if you want to go ahead and ask your question as well.
Yeah, hi. I have a question about
Oh, hold on. Fotzing, are you making a comment? Okay, go ahead, Igor. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Then I have a question about the value of art. Is the NFT a place for artists and art, or artists like Damien Hurst? He's a more speculative artist. So, yeah, how he think about it?
Personally, I believe that NFTs are a medium and a distribution channel for all sorts of content generally, and art being one of the easiest content types to understand. And so Damien already has a great name and a great presence, so people seek out his NFTs more than up-and-coming artists, but we've seen up-and-coming artists be massively successful and build that name and build that community in the crypto space and build their art careers that way. For me, what makes me most excited to be working in Palm NFT Studio is the ability to give new distribution channels and new monetization approaches for up-and-coming artists. Like I love working with Damien Hurst, don't get me wrong, but if we can find the next Damien Hurst, or someone who hasn't really had the ability to get their art seen because it's hard to monetize digitally native art, but we can do that now with NFTs. That'll be really exciting, right? Historically, digitally native art has really struggled to be monetized and to build a career around. But with NFTs, you're able to really do that. And I think that should open up the set of people who will be able to build their careers and via art, and forget the monetary bit. Like, who cares necessarily about building a career? Maybe that's not what everyone's goals are. It'll increase the number of people who will be able to share their art and people who will be able to collect other people's art, and will increase engagement generally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually have a follow-up question to that, because I think it's fantastic what we're seeing right now in the NFT space about artists and creators coming forward and talking about the technology. And Dan, you were on a panel back in June at Hyperledger Global Forum where we had Imogen, the musical artist, also talking about the creative passport and other things that she's been doing around licensing. And I think it's just a much needed viewpoint on the technology that we're building when the actual creators and artists love to see, you know, when you're having conversations with them, how deep do they want to go on the technology?
It varies completely, to be honest. I mean, some artists are already some of the world's leading technologists, right? They're pushing what's possible with technology in order to create art. So those people, that type of artist usually wants to get really deep and really into the weeds and understand things really immensely. But other people just see it as an exciting new distribution channel and a new way to engage with fans, and that's fantastic as well. So we sort of seen the full gamut. I think more and more people will get deeper into the technology because they need to understand the limitations and what's capable. And it's blockchain and NFTs are opening up a new discussion around the art of the possible and what you can actually do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a great voices to be included in there. I'm going to go ahead and open up Philippe to, if you can introduce yourself and ask your question, that'd be great.
Hello, Dan. Thank you very much for that great presentation and for the work that you're doing with Palm. My name is Felipe Arango. I'm originally from Colombia. And part of the use cases that we have been looking at in terms of connecting communities of creators and their audiences is to advance some marginalized communities, for example, indigenous communities or small farmers. And it's great to see what you're doing on the environmental end of using the Web3 for impact. And I just wanted to get your thoughts as to possibilities and potential in terms of different use cases and using this connection, this streaming to support and empower marginalized communities.
It's a great question, and thank you for flagging the environmental angle. It's sort of a core of what we do. But for us, sustainability, environmental sustainability is a key part of that, but it's only one part of that. One of the things that I think motivates everyone at Palm NFT Studio is that this is a technology that does give access to more people. I mean, this isn't maybe exactly the best example, but what Axie Infinity is doing and the fact that so much of their players and their top earners are in the Philippines, I think is a great example of sort of the fact that these products and projects are global by nature and different people are drawn to them in different ways and taking advantage of that. And I think it's excellent. For me, there's a few ways we're seeing sort of active engagement with marginalized communities. So first, we have a bunch of collaborations in the works, early phases, with either marginalized sort of artist collectives around marginalized communities and nonprofits as well, who are trying to sort of promote the work of those communities and then give revenue back to those communities. I think those are the sorts of projects we'll see more and more of in the short term. Long term, hopefully, the platforms will exist and be easy enough to use and widely distributed that artists anywhere in the world, with sort of any background, can put their work out there and hopefully get seen. I mean, that's the dream, right? Disintermediate in some respect the galleries.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. I'll be reaching out by email.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Philippe. Dan, there's a question in the Q&A box. What are the benefits of deploying on Palm and not on Ethereum?
Yeah, so there's a few. So first, Ethereum is great. We love Ethereum. We're Ethereum maxis. So it's just about finding the right trade-offs. So the first is the gas fees. Gas fees are absolutely trivial on Palm. And so when you're distributing 10,000, 100,000, a million NFTs, that makes a big difference. The second is the environmental impact of activity on Palm right now. Patch.io, which is sort of a carbon offset company, just did an analysis of Palm, and they found it to be 99.99% more energy efficient than proof of work systems. So particularly for creators and brands who are passionate about that, that makes a big difference. And then there are a couple other benefits. So predictable gas fees helps for user experience. The spikes in gas fees on mainnet can create a clunky user experience at times, virtually shutting down dApps for the periods where gas is too high. And then short transaction periods. So we have block times of 5 seconds on Palm. Average transaction therefore gets through in sort of 2.5 seconds, plus latency, which is pretty trivial. So we're talking seconds instead of the minutes that is the case on mainnet. And that also helps from a user experience perspective. So that was maybe a bit of a monotone ramble, and I apologize, but there's a number of benefits. There are times where it's right to mint on and run your project on mainnet, but there are times where sidechains, particularly the Palm sidechain, makes sense.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Any other additional questions? Once again, if you just raise your hand, I can permit you to speak, or you can just type your question into the chat or the Q&A box. Dan, I'd like to shift a little bit, and we're welcome to have more discussions around Palm, but specifically about how the Palm engineering team and the developers work with the Hyperledger Besu open source community. If you can maybe share a little bit about that, kind of your experiences, some things that maybe some of the attendees and those listening to the webinar after the fact can use as guidance on how to engage with the Hyperledger Besu community.
I should have a better answer to this one.
You were there from the start.
Well, I was there from the start. I'm just trying to think about the Palm engineers. So from the start, I mean, it's been amazing, right? So the community has given us, I think there's 2 sets or maybe 3 sets of advantages that come with working with the Hyperledger Foundation on our project. And I imagine this is true for most projects. So one is just the instant credibility. The Hyperledger Foundation is a recognized name in most enterprises. They understand that it sort of gives you a stamp of approval and it shortcuts a lot of discussions. And in the search of credibility, that just makes sense. Super helpful. The second is that credibility and the existing Hyperledger community is a shortcut to building a project-specific community. And so we've had a lot of people engage with our project, get involved, start contributing because they came in through the Hyperledger Foundation or because their company started working on a Hyperledger Besu related project because of the credibility the Hyperledger Foundation gave us. And so it was really helpful in growing a community. And then, the final thing that's super helpful is collaboration across projects. Like Caliper, I think it is the testing suite in Hyperledger Foundation, so another open source project. We did a lot of work with Caliper in terms of benchmarking and testing and optimizing Besu throughout the years, and having that collaboration has been very helpful. So I think there's a few areas we got benefits in terms of like the best way to engage. It's honestly super simple. It's like show up to the dev calls, just show up, talk, see what people care about and are asking questions about. And there's always an ability to get involved and get engaged. For the engineers on the call who are looking for jobs, I know there's some of you, like showing up to these community dev calls, you will immediately get to know the core developers on any project. And if there's something where you think you can lend a hand in the open source world, spend a day doing that. If they like your work, they'll hire you. I mean, it's that simple. We hired a number of people through that exact process.
Yeah, it's a great community. And, you know, it's the developers and the teams within these companies and projects that really make the Hyperledger project so successful. Dennis, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you and allow you to talk, and you can ask your question.
Great, thank you. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Dennis. It's great to see what Palm is doing in the art space. I actually used to run a gallery in LA and helped a couple artist friends get into the NFT space. But my question isn't so much art related, more so enterprise related. I actually work in the manufacturing supply chains for a company called SyncFab, and we use Hyperledger to track and trace CNC parts between vendors and OEMs. And one of the things I'm interested in the NFT space is more so for its IP ownership properties. And one of the biggest issues, as you brought up, is the time efficiency and transaction costs of using Ethereum mainnet. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on what are the benefits of using Palm that can help with these aspects. Can you shed some more light on the cost and transaction limitations there?
Yeah, so costs right now are like honestly like trivial to the point where I think, so right now Palm, the network uses Palm the token to pay for gas fees, right? And the Palm the token has no value. It's free, and it has no value because we're literally giving it away to anyone who needs to pay for transactions. We are sort of subsidizing transaction costs. So right now it's free to run transactions on Palm. It's, you know, the gas fees need to be there to protect against Sybil attacks, but we're distributing through a faucet that protects against Sybil attacks. So we're taking a short-term approach to subsidize gas fees. On a long-term ongoing basis, we're targeting something like 2 to 5 cents per transaction, sort of our mental model. So that's way cheaper than mainnet. In terms of throughput, we're seeing easily pretty comfortably 150 transactions per second, though that goes up to 600 transactions per second, and we're going through that optimization. So well over the number required for all current use cases that we've seen. And the nice thing here is Hyperledger Besu, which is the client we're running, and IBFT2, the ConsenSys mechanism, was optimized for high throughput use cases in the enterprise Ethereum context. So like exactly what you're talking about, that those enterprise use cases is what this client was optimized for. And then we're just exposing this network publicly via Infura APIs. So, you know, I think in terms of your use case, it's a really good fit.
Cool. I'll definitely have to check more on the Palm website. Appreciate the answer.
Right. And Dennis, a question, you mentioned that you were using Hyperledger. Which project have you been working with Besu directly?
Yeah, so it's called SyncFab. We actually work with a lot of aerospace and defense OEMs where we're using Hyperledger to track more so milestone timestamp data and different certification information that gets passed between vendors in the supply chain. So say someone that's manufacturing a part, then a vendor that's finishing the part, and that gets all shown to the OEM, and we kind of track that information on the Hyperledger component.
Okay. And which Hyperledger project?
I believe it was originally Sawtooth, and then it's transitioned to Besu. I need to double check with our dev team to see.
Right.
But yeah, we've been using Hyperledger in general for quite some time now, and kind of just developing the system, improving on it, updating it as we go along and learn more with the OEMs that we work with.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to learning more. There's a question about breaking news. I don't think, Dan, we have any breaking news to break, but on this webinar. But I think this has been an enlightening and very helpful discussion around what's happening with Besu in the ecosystem. It looks like there's no other questions, so I'm gonna just go ahead and share a couple of things. As Dan said, the best way is to join us, show up at the Hyperledger Besu project community. Every, resource is available. You can download the code, you can join the chats, the distribution lists, the maintainer calls, and the different calls within the community as well. There is also a free online self-paced MOOC, Hyperledger Besu Essentials, creating in private blockchain networks. This was launched in June, and there's already thousands of people that are taking that course and finishing that up. So you can enroll for free, and you can also get a certificate at the end through the edX platform if you so desire. But it is this great skill set. Once if you, as Dan said, if you're looking for a developer engineering work, there is a lot of interest in having developers that are familiar with Besu. And if you're building your own solutions like Dennis, really understanding how Besu is used in different use cases as well. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, the attendees and everyone here on the line. Let me see, make sure there's no other questions, just to make sure. All right, there's no other questions. Dan, always a pleasure to see your face and hear your story. It's such a great one. And we really are looking forward to some additional Palm Studio announcements and bigger stars and more stars. But I'm certainly keeping an eye on the Damien Hurst auction at the end of the year to see what people decide, after that 12 months. I wish I had one. I didn't get to it fast enough. So once again, these are weekly or bi-weekly events that we have. The next one that we have on the calendar is also a Hyperledger Besu member webinar. This is from Ledger Leopard on supply chain traceability. So this might actually be an interesting one for you, Dennis, to catch to get, as well as how they're using Hyperledger Besu in that use case. And once again, if you just go to hyperledger.org and events, you can register for any of these webinars that are free. They're either project webinars like the one we did today on Besu, and we'll be doing some more on Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Sawtooth, etc. And you can also see the member webinars for our member companies. There's a lot of great content. I mentioned the session that Daniel actually participated in at Global Forum, specific to NFTs and the music and entertainment industry with Imogen and a couple of others. Please do check out our videos. They're available on demand from our website. And you can see a lot of great talks really talking about our very large and diverse Hyperledger community. Once again, to get involved, here are some of the resources. Go ahead, you can take a scan of the QRC code, but if you visit hyperledger.org community and resources, a lot of these links are there, and we look forward to seeing you in the community out there. So once again, my name is Daniela Barbosa, and I thank you all for joining us today. I encourage you to watch additional webinars, videos, join our meetup communities. We have regional chapters in Japan, in Latin America, in Brazil, and in Italy, and many more. So please do.
Spain?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Any luck in Spain? I just moved to Spain.
In Spain, we have meetups in Spain. We have them in Barcelona and Madrid. I don't think there's a regional chapter yet, but we'll get you hooked up on that. And I'm sure as people get together and start going to physical meetups, we would love to have both Madrid and Barcelona start that back up again. So we will get you involved, Dan.
Thanks, Daniela.
Great. Thanks again. And everybody have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.